So in this video, we're going to look at our learning objective 4 for our first learning module. And we're going to look at before you learn more about statistics, and we want to emphasize the challenge you will face. And so hopefully before you jump in, you understand, hey, it's okay for me to facing this difficult because this is a common challenge facing all the statistician or business analysts. So the ideal data analyst or business professional using statistics should possess the following characteristics. So is technically current, and so are you able to use the most up-to-date software? The good thing is the Excel never haven't been out of date. So if you are undergraduate going to any company, the expectation for you to as a business professional using statistics that you are able to use Excel to do data analysis. So therefore we want to make sure our students keep up to date, and we're going to use Excel in this class and also the next QBA 3000 class as well. And the second is they're expecting you to be able to communicate well. Okay, so the communicate well is not, hey, I can speak English. It is about, I have this data. Can I concisely tell people what I found? What is my suggestion? So you don't want to spend 20 minutes to share some idea. Somebody else can use 1 minute. Okay, so practicing on your communication skills. And also, are you able to creating a compelling, powerful PowerPoint? So that's another skill related to communication. Speaking and the PowerPoint creation both belonging to the communication skill. So are you able to be proactive? So the good employee always be, hey, before the boss tell me, I already think about it. Versus the bad employee always say, hey, the boss tell me so, and I do it. For some situation, even boss tell me so, I still don't do it. So you want to developing that kind of proactive work ethics. So that definitely can reveal in our classes. And I can very clearly see that every class I have about 5% student, always proactive, always on time, never ask for extend for deadlines. And I always have certain amount of student like I forget about deadline, I wait for last minute, always ask for extension, and then forget about some details. So that kind of work ethic has to be corrected. So don't think about, hey, I will get better when I find the job. So that's not the case. As you sign on this 4-year learning journey, that's also the opportunity to help you to building a good work ethic so that get you ready for the future career. And next is it has a broad outlook, so not narrow focus. If I ask you to calculate the mean of the customer's age, that's the only thing you know. Versus, hey, I know the mean of the customers, how that going to impact in the business decision down the road, right? So you need to have the broad outlook, and also be flexible. And I think the good thing for the college is that sometimes you are taking a class from the professor you don't like. Yes, so maybe that not good, but actually it's an opportunity to practice your flexibility. So in a real world setting, you are not always able to work with the team you're happy about. You are not always able to work on the project you're passionate about. But the question is, given those scenarios, you work with the people you don't like, the project you don't like, are you still be able to submit a high quality work, right? I know not a lot of students like statistics, not a lot of students like data. So, but this is the required course for you. Are you able to, given that scenario, you still can do well in this class, right? So that flexibility is very crucial. And also meeting the deadlines. So all the classes have deadlines, always work in advance. As I said, students sometimes waiting for last minute to work on it. You don't know what's going to happen the last day, right? So the same scenario can happen in a professional setting. If your deadline is tomorrow, are you really waiting for tomorrow to work on it? And so maybe in the class, you cannot meet the deadline, get 0 for one assignment, or you get a penalty. For my class, I don't take any late assignment, so you get 0 for that assignment. But it's just still a small portion of your final grade, right? But in the real world, you missing deadline once, and your boss maybe give you a bad rating twice, and then they start to judging you, and 3 times you got fired, right? So that's not good, and that's going to impact in your professional career. Everybody know each other. You don't want to build a reputation that you always be the one missing the deadline, right? So the only way you can prevent that happen is work in advance and have a better time management. And next is focusing on the main problems. So there are a lot of distraction as you go into the data space. The data is messy as you dive into the data. Always ask yourself, hey, what is the business problem I try to solve, so that you can prevent being distracted. And next is knows their limits and is willing to ask for help. As we already mentioned in our second learning objective, always know when you need to ask the statistician to help you out, right? Don't assume you are the Mr. or Miss Know Everything, because that's when you are going to creating a problem. So it's okay to ask questions. Just try to figure out, balance out what is called ask too much question, what is called not asking question. You want to find a balance between this. You don't want to not asking question, but also you also don't want to ask too many questions. And so have a good mentor in a real job is very important. So they will guide you through about the company culture, help you understand, hey, what is considered as the right amount of question I'm asking. And also you can deal with the imperfect information. So that's one thing wish I can do. No, we can do better in the college is that mostly in the statistic question we offer you, the data is pretty clean. So basically no errors, no missing values. And so, but in the real world, the data is not like that. The data are messy, and then the data can missing value. People can give you the wrong data. So you need to know how to deal with imperfect information. Are you supposed to delete the data? How to detect them, not impacting your result, etc. Okay. And the last one is has professional integrity, never cheating, never fake out your data, never manipulating your source, etc. Always need to be honest. Why is that? Because even you are thinking you should get this result, the data didn't tell you. It is okay to tell your boss, I just cannot get it, versus fake the data, share the wrong result, because maybe in the short term, they give you applause, hey, good job, you find the result we're looking for, but down the road, it will haunt you. And then maybe not every boss understand that, so you will be the ambassador to help them understand that, hey, I just cannot fake the data. Not just say directly, be nicely, find a good communication skill to help them understand this is what data tell us. And then if you don't like it, but I cannot fake the data, right? So those are the characteristic as a data analysis and you need to hold. Okay. So here are a few really word examples about when you're dealing with imperfect data or the limitation of the data, right? So for instance, here we're talking about automobile test. We really cannot use human subject to test it, so it's too risky. So therefore, it's a limit. So the ideal situation would be actually use human to test out the automobile safety, but we cannot do it, right? And similarly, when we're talking about the drug, right? So we're always starting from the mice before we are able to move on to the human subject. And also for the telephone survey, we cannot ask a female respondent whether she has had an abortion. And it's a sensitive question, and especially if you're going to be in the human resource department, some of the questions you actually cannot ask. And so we also cannot test everyone for COVID because it's vast data, so we only can get in the small sample size. But the key here is the sample has to be able to represent the population. So those are the practical constraints. That's why we said you need to be able to deal with imperfection. Okay, now let's look at our business ethics as a statistician or business analyst. Early career statistician. I cannot call you guys statistician as you finish this class. We only can see you as either business analyst, data analyst, or the inspiring statistician. You need to get a further education to be called a statistician. So some broad ethical responsibility of the business include the following. First, treating customer in a fair and honest manner. Second, complying with law that prohibit discrimination. And if you don't do that, you're going to get a lawsuit. Your company will get a lawsuit. Ensuring that product and the services meet safety regulation. Advertising in a factual and informative manner. Encouraging employee to ask questions and voice concern about company's business practices. And then lastly, being responsible for accurately reporting information to management. I think the rule of thumb, as I came back from the industry, is that every time you think about business ethics, it's always about, hey, I need to think about the long-term benefit. So when the business practitioner, they become unethical, usually because they've been being attracted by some short-term gains, such as short-term promotion, short-term pay, short-term actual pay, and a short-term praise from your boss. So those short-term benefits without considering long-term, and that will become usually will lead you to unethical behavior. So as for me, a seasoned data scientist and a statistician, when I do any business, deal with any business, I always ask myself, hey, it's okay for short term, I'm going to get some short term pain, but if I know it's going to be beneficial in the long term. And so if you are unethical down the road, so the long-term pain will haunt you. So that's what our financial crisis 2008 happened due to some of the financial people creating the financial instrument that is try to gain the short term, but then they destroy the whole U.S. economy, right? Or global economy. So again, rule of thumb, although I list like 6 bullet points here, you just need to keep in mind that if your motivation for doing something is due to the short-term gain, causing a long-term pain, that usually involving unethical behaviors. But if your action is always towards the long-term gain, and then you should know that, hey, you know what, I'm doing something right. Okay. Now I want to emphasize how you as a data analyst or business analyst to upholding ethical standard. First, know and follow accepted procedure. So every company will have some kind of procedure. Your mentor will tell you, your manager will tell you, and maintain data integrity. Never changing the data, never changing your statistical model, manipulating your result, and so all those are unacceptable. You make sure the data are integrated. So sometimes the data itself have the flaws, and you need to report it out. And carry out accurate calculation. So accurate here, right? So always validating your work. And it's really hard to say you just do the first round of calculation, get everything right. Always cross-checking yourself, right? And report procedure faithfully, and then protect the confidential information. So like if your data has a social security number, make sure you don't leak it. Have birthday, your health situation, so never leak it. Those are confidential information. And always cite the sources, where you got your data, the model you use, where you borrowed the model, right? Acknowledge the source of the financial support because it helps to preventing the conflict of interest. Can you imagine if you are a research data analyst to help the candy industry to understand the impact of the candy on children's teeth decay? So of course you need to cite in your resource because there is some kind of conflict of interest, right? If you don't cite it, people are gonna thinking, hey, it's not credible because you're hiding the financial support. But if you do get a financial support from the data candy, like a candy industry, but you reveal it, at least people know, hey, he disclosed the financial support. Although they might have conflict of interest, but we can sort of trust him because he help us understand who actually funding their research, right? And so the last not least about working, so you also need to know we are going to work in a team. Business activity is often handled in teams. And today, technical experts spend much of their time in meeting, discussing project milestone, preparing team report, and arguing about methodology. So the question facing the team usually involve what is the best way to organize the team, and what communication channel will the team use, and how can the team resource best be utilized, and what is the role of the team leader, and do we really need a subcommittee? And also using the consultant, as we said, as a business analyst, you have limited idea about statistics. We are able to deal with the daily data manipulation, but at sometimes maybe it's better actually using consultant like a PwC or EY, etc. To leveraging. They already had a team to figure out if you can kick off this project. And so some companies expect their employee to be able to interpret, resolve the statistical analysis, even if it was completed by an outside consultant. So you want to kind of have somebody inside to validating the work. Okay, so we are talking about communicating with numbers. So number have meaning only when the communicate is the context at a certain situation. So the presentation should be such that a manager will quickly understand the information they need to use in order to make a good decision. Don't overcomplicate your visualization and make it straightforward, and don't pack too many information in one slide. Okay, so if you look at the I give you this example here. Look at the table 1.1. So Apple revenue and the profit is showing in a table versus the figure below. Which one do you prefer? Oops. Of course, if you are presenting this to your to anybody, they're going to prefer the figures. It's very straightforward, is that you can see the revenue and the profit all go up. But before 2021, they kind of like staggered. But as we know, the revenue, the gap between the revenue and the profit is like getting wider. That means their cost might go up. That's why the gap between the revenue and the profit go higher, right? Go wider. Okay. So, like I said, communicating with number. The key here is choose the best visualization. Allow your stakeholder to get an insight immediately. Okay, so that is our learning objective 4. Help you to understand the constraint facing the actual data analyst or business analyst. So next video, we're going to look at our last learning objective for this learning module is when the statistic is going to fail. Now let's look at practice question related to the consultant ethics and also the constraint facing the data analyst. So first, an ethical statistical consultant would not always. So what you will not always do. First, follow accept the statistical procedure. It's definitely you need to. So support management desired conclusion. So do you agree? Remember, supporting management desired conclusion, that will help you to gain your short-term praise from your manager. However, it might end up like a long-term loss, right? Because maybe their desired conclusion is actually wrong. So therefore, 2 should be the one we want to select. Would not always support manager desired conclusion. We only representing what the data are showing us, right? And 3, acknowledge the source of the financial support. As I mentioned, you need to. And the report limitation of data. So the data are not perfect. You need to talk about the limitation. So therefore, for the first practice question, you will pick number 2, support management's desired conclusion. That is not you always should do. And next, an ethical data analysis would be least likely to check data for accuracy. You're always going to do that before you start analysis. And cite her data source and their limitation. You also need to do that. Acknowledge source of financial support, as I mentioned, is very important. Last, rely on consultant for all calculations. No. So we will use consultant when we feel necessary, but we are not using them all the time. Otherwise, why we need you, right? So therefore, the second question, we will pick the last one, rely on consultant for all calculations. So that is the least likely to happen. Okay, so next we're going to look at the difficulty or the burden we will see in the statistic world.